Hi friends, welcome or welcome back to the channel. I am so glad you clicked on today's video. Today we're going to be talking about everything I read in the month of January. And guys, I must say I kicked off the year on a bang. And normally January is a good reading month because even last January, I had some really good reads last January. And so it was only right that we had good reads this January. So this month I read a total of 11 books, and let's see, I read, let's see the stats. Are we gonna become a stats person this year? Should I start putting my stats of how many pages and how many? First of all, that's too much math, but I can tell y'all I read 3 fantasy. I read 1 audiobook, 7 romance. So, well, 8 romance if you include the audiobook, but we're just gonna say audiobook. So, yes, that is what I read. I don't know why I put my phone down. Lord knows I'm gonna need Goodreads to tell me what order I read them in, so we can talk about what books. But yeah, I am really proud of how many books I read this month. So without further ado, without further chit chat, let's get into my monthly wrap up. Okay, so starting out strong, starting out with one of my most anticipated reads of 2024, we have Ruthless Vows. Guys, this is the second installment of the Letters of Enchantment world. So the first book was Divine Rivals, and y'all, I did not expect to love Divine Rivals as much as I did, but I ate that up. Divine Rivals was just literally, that book gave everything it needed to give. But I did read this one, and I read this one coming out of I don't know if it was a book slump, but I was just very tired of what was I tired of? I wasn't even tired of anything. I was so it was the holiday time and I was with family, and so I wasn't reading as much. So every time I was getting ready to read, I would be so tired just from the holidays. So I basically this one was kind of my first thick book getting back into just trying to read again after the holidays. And so I have very high expectations, y'all. This was definitely one of my 5-star predictions. I really did think I was going to go into this book rating it 5 stars, which it did not get 5 stars, unfortunately, but it did get 4.5, which is still so close to 5 stars. I think there were just parts where it was kind of just I was just reading it and I was just kind of just going with it. It wasn't anything going on. It was very easy to put this down, especially in the beginning, and I just really did not expect that, especially with the way Divine Rivals ended. I feel there just shouldn't have been no reason for me to want to put this down. And then I think just something kind of just lingered on. I was just oh, I don't can we get to the next thing? It was just very minute things that kept it from being a 5-star. Will I reread this series? Absolutely. It's still 8. It just, compared to Divine Rivals, which I gave a 5 stars, I did not enjoy this one as much as I enjoyed Divine Rivals. I can't give too much about this one because then it's just gonna kind of ruin what happens in the first one. But if you don't know about this world, basically you have these 2 writers, and they are people who write for these is typewriter times. So they're writing for, think of a newspaper station, I guess, if you will. And so both of them have magical typewriters that their grandparents or grandmothers gave to them, and they don't know that they're magical, but they find out that they're magical every time they write a letter and they stick it in the wardrobe. It will go to whoever else has a magical typewriter, and there's only 3 in the world, and they're the only 2 that have them, and the 3rd one is in a museum. So yeah, they're basically the main female character, Iris, she is writing letters to her brother who has gone to fight in the war. And so she she can't give him his letters, but she knows her letters are like going somewhere. And so they end up going to Roman, and Roman does figure out that it is Iris writing these letters. Roman and Iris do know each other. They actually work at the same news station. And so yeah, that it just turns into a whole thing. They both end up becoming war writers, so they end up going basically like to the front lines to just like write about what's going. So war correspondents is what they're called. And yeah, you just, you know, it's just such like a, I wouldn't even say cozy fantasy, and I wouldn't even say low stakes fantasy, but like it will at least reading Divine Rivals, like it didn't really get like heart pumping until like closer to the end, but it was just like the whole story was just magical. It was just like you just got like sucked into the world, and you're just like reading their letters that they're writing to each other. And yeah, it's just like, that's like the best way I can put it. And so yeah, it ends, like I said, it ends on a cliffhanger, and Iris and Roman end up getting separated. And so we find out everything, like basically of them trying to like get back together, like trying to find each other after they got separated. So yes, like I said, 4.5 stars. Very much enjoyed it, but it's still not better than Divine Rivals. But I do highly, highly, highly recommend that series if you guys are wanting just like, I think that could also be a really good book diving into fantasy, because there's still like, as much as it's like not modern day, it's still very much like similar to like what you would expect like the 80s and 90s to be like. No phones, so like, you know, everyone's using typewriters, but it still has that fantasy aspect, because it's basically the war that's going on is a war of gods. So there's like 6 gods, and 2 of them have awoken, and they are out for vengeance for each other. So, you know, it's still very much that fantasy aspect, which is why I say like, I think that's a perfect book if you want to get into fantasy. I think that could be a perfect like starter fantasy book. So the next book I read was The Long Game by Elena Armas. And if you guys know, I love the Spanish Love Deception. I read it last year, and it was one of my top reads. Literally, I don't know what crack she put in the Spanish Love Deception, but I ate it up. Like, I ate that book up. I loved the fake dating. I loved the travel aspect. Like, it's like the setting, it's in New York and then they're in Spain. Like, I just loved everything about that book. And so I was just like, I need to read more of her. Like, I had wanted to read The American Roommate Experiment, but I never got to it. And so this was her newest release. So I was like, let me just dive into this one. Let's do this one. And so this one was good, but it definitely did not live up to like my expectations after I read The Spanish Love Deception, which, I mean, technically for a typical romance, because this is just your normal, you know, romance. There's not anything just like, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? There's not anything like spectacular that's going on. It's just, you know, your feel good romance. You may have a little kiki ha moment, but that is essentially what it is. And so I already know The Spanish Love Deception, like it being what it was, like that was very rare for like a romance to get that kind of rating. So I kind of probably should have, you know, figured that when I went into this one. But yeah, this one I gave, what did I give this one? I gave it 3 stars. And when I think about it, maybe I can say 3.5 stars, like going back thinking about it, like maybe not 3 stars, because it definitely, like, I definitely enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for what it was. I would not say like I constantly think about it, like I don't think about the book, but I think it's still like, it's a little bit better than 3 stars. Like 3 stars is not bad at all. 3 stars is like it did what it was supposed to do. So I'm like 3.5 maybe. But I forgot the Adeline. So Adeline works at her father's, like, is it soccer? Really, it's like football, but it's like soccer. I think is really what it is. But she works at her father, like her father is like the owner of the team. or whatever, and so she works for him, but then there's a huge like scandal that happens, and he sends her away to basically get herself together. Like, he's like, you didn't caused us enough embarrassment, you need to go so we can fix this mess, this PR mess. And so she ends up going to this town to work with this girl group of a team. They're little kids, and the place that she ends up staying at, or is supposed to stay at, it's actually been rented out by, what's his name, Cameron. And Cameron is a professional soccer player, and he's basically retired, and so I guess you can say he's out in hiding, but he's not out in hiding. Like, he's just like, I'm done with the PR, like I'm done being in the media, like I just want, you know, I want my small town countryside life. That's what he's there for. And so yeah, they technically they didn't rent the same thing. Like, she rented like the little small cottage, and yeah, so it's just basically them two trying to work together, because he is actually also helping out with the girls team for a favor, just with someone in the neighborhood. And so yeah, that's literally what it is. Two people who their paths cross, and now they're kind of forced to work together, and they kind of also are like, I guess forced proximity is what you would call it. Duh, Jasmine. Yeah, so you will just call it forced proximity is what I would say. And like I said, it was good for what it was. It just wasn't the best. So I think I stick with 3.5. I think is a good solid rating for that one. I definitely would recommend it if you just want, like, you know, a good palette cleanser, which I do think it's great for that. But if I was like, if someone was like, tell me some of your favorite romances, that one would not be it. I would still definitely go with The Spanish Love Deception. I did a reread because I was like, well, did I just read this in like September? Yes. But did I want to read again? Yes. So I did my reread of House of Earth and Blood, and this ate down. And it was good to like get a, like, I already knew this was a 5-star read because I rated 5 stars the first time. So like, I knew going into it, like I was just like, I just want a 5-star read. So I knew this was going to deliver. And I also just kind of missed how I felt at the end of this book. Like, just the adrenaline rush. Like, I just needed that rush of feeling. I needed, you know, that sitting at the edge of my seat. Even though I knew what was happening, I still knew that, like, I was still gonna get those same feelings, because I don't know what Sarah J Maas does, but it's something that she does in her writing that, like, no matter how many times you read it, you are still gonna have the same effect. Like, I was still over here sweating, like, when I was like, oh my gosh, is she really about to do this? Like, is this really about to happen? And so yeah, and it's always like, it's crazy how it's always packed in like the last 200 pages. Like, I know some people think like the first like 600 something pages is like mundane, but like, I like it because I feel like you're not, you know, getting to the world. This is the more urban fantasy, I think is what they say, because it's more like modern. Like, you know, they have phones, they go to work, all of that, but you still have that very fae aspect, and you know, you have the hysteria that they're trying to obey, and you have the powers and the magic. Like, all of that is still very real, but it's just kind of set in our world today. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of, you know, you're getting introduced to a lot of characters, and there's a lot of side characters in this. And then also you have the main two characters, the main female and main male character. They don't know each other going into this. So like, you have like all these pages where you're like just learning their like relationship. So like, how they have to work together, how like, because at the end, you know, like you see the romance part of it. So like, there's a lot of build up, there's a lot of storytelling, and I really enjoyed that. And so, and also like, it's not so like, this one is not romance heavy. Like, I do not think this book, I think this series in general is very more plot heavy than romance heavy, and I love that. I just love the plot of the book. Like, that, I think that really is what solidifies like my rating. I mean, plus it's just Sarah J Maas, but like the plot, like if it was just the romance, then I would probably like, no, like that's what we got Akitar for. Like, that's giving more romance. This one is definitely giving more plot, and the plot ate down. And yeah, that's that's all I can say about that one. pretty sure I went to a spiel too on my like September reading wrap up, so if you guys want to see that. But like I said, absolutely love that book. Easy 5 stars. This month I tried to read like a lot of romance. Like I have so many romance books that like I always buy them, like, oh, palette cleansers for when I'm reading, like, you know, fantasies or series. And so I'm like, Jasmine, you really need to start like reading these romance books because you have so many and there's so many you want to get to. So the next one I read was The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. This was actually in one of my weekly reading vlogs. Like I think it was my first one of the year. But y'all, I enjoyed this so much. I did not expect to like this one so much. I gave it 4 stars, and let me just say this, going into this one, I read this one because I wanted to read The 7-Year Slip. Like that was the whole reason of me reading this one. I'm like, I honestly didn't have like, it wasn't like high on my radar. The 7-Year Slip was high on my radar, but I'm like, let me read this one first because everyone loves this one. And I'm like, it just, you know, this is her first published one. Like, let me do this one before I go into The 7-Year Slip. And so when I started out, it wasn't taboo, but it was very just like off, like from what I'm normally reading. Like just the plot line, it just wasn't, it wasn't what I was expecting. And so basically what this book is about, what's her name? Florence. She is a ghostwriter, and she was raised in a funeral home. So her dad and mom, they own a funeral home, and so the way they look at death is more like a celebration. Like it's not something to really mourn. But on top of that, her and her dad have these like powers where essentially when someone dies, and not every person, but sometimes a person who technically like has something that they need to realize that they didn't realize before their death or whatever it may be, her and her dad can see them, and essentially like the person doesn't go away until they like finally help them with what like the person needed before they died or whatever. And so she ends up having to go back home because her father ends up passing, and her new manager for the person she ghostwrites for, he ends up coming to her as a ghost, and she's just like, wait, there's no way you're dead, because I literally just had a meeting with you right before I left like to come home. And so, you know, it's all about trying to figure out like, why on earth is this man like, first of all, it was like, was he really dead? And then once we found out like the incident, it was like, okay, like why are you showing up? Like, what do you need from me? Like, why are you here? And so yeah, and then she finally goes back home, and you know, she finds out a lot more information about the guy. And so yeah, it's just, it was a time reading it. Like by the time, I want to say like, how many pages is this? It was like 3-something pages. By the time I say like I got to like 200, yeah, like once I got to like 200 pages, it was like I was flying through this book. Like the last 150 pages, y'all, I could not put this book down. But the first 200 pages, I was more so like, you know, it's okay, it's a romance, you know, it's doing what it needs to do. It was still more so like, okay, like I'm really still trying to figure out what's going on. But that last 150 pages, that did it for me. That's what pushed it to a 4-star for me, because at first it was just more of a 3-star. But the last 150 pages definitely made it a 4-star. Score by L. Kennedy. So this is the 3rd book in the off-campus series, and this one focused on Dean and Allie. And if you guys don't know, this book is set at Briar-U University. It's a known hockey school, so it like each book covers one of the guys that all live in this house. It's 4 guys, and they're all like really close best friends, and so each book focuses on each one of them. And so Dean was the focus of this one, and Dean was known as the playboy, the known relationship guy, the guy who's just like man of one night stands. He slept with everybody at the school, and like that's his reputation. He don't mind, like that's what he want people to think. He's a rich boy, you know, he's about to go to law school once he leaves the university. So he's just like, you know, he is very much just, I'm doing what I'm doing while I'm in undergrad. And so Allie is actually Garrett's girlfriend's best friend. So if you know the first book is about Garrett and Hannah. So Allie is Hannah's best friend, and obviously, just by association, she ends up hanging out with the hockey players sometimes because her best friend is dating one of them. So she ends up at the house of the hockey players because she can't be alone because she just broke up with her boyfriend and she doesn't want to be tempted to text him or like be at her dorm room when he comes. And so she ends up going to the hockey players' house, and Dean is there. And so she's just like trying not to text her boyfriend, and she's like, I need you to take my phone. And yeah, so that leads to a one-night stand because Dean just is Dean. He does what he do. And you just go from there. Like I said, he's not a relationship kind of guy, but he just cannot figure out why he wants to meet Allie again. Like, why does he want to be with her again? And she's fighting it. She's just like, you know, that was a one-time thing. Like, no, you are who you are. I'm not gonna associate with that. All of that. Like, she's like, I'm not the hookup type girl. I'm a relationship type girl, which she was. So yeah, it's just like a whole thing. And you know, this world is just, you just go through their college life and like how they are like finding love, how they're finding their life partner. And yeah, and so also like just kind of figuring out, like, because they're all seniors, they're about to graduate, so like it's also like figuring out like, okay, what do you truly want to do? Like, you know, Allie, she wants to be an actor. Dean, he's kind of just following his family's footsteps where he's supposed to be a lawyer. But then, like, you know, throughout you're finding out, like, okay, he's trying to figure out what he really wants to do. And Allie's trying to, like, figure out, like, okay, how am I really going to make acting a career? All of that. So that's what it is. I gave it 4 stars. I love this world. Like, it's just, this world is just, like, when you just want, like... and it's not like so focused on hockey, but I do love the hockey aspect, and I love the side characters. Like, you get like so many of their friends, you get like, you know, other sports like football players and stuff. So it's just like this whole, like, it just gives you college vibes. When I read it, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I love college. Like, can I go back? Like, it was just like, you just get that carefree vibe before adulting comes in, and it's just, that's what it is. So like, I feel like, especially if you like have been through college, like I've been through college, you know, I'm in the adult world now, so it's like whenever you just want like a step back and you just want to reminisce on, like, man, like, you didn't realize how carefree college, well, depending on what your college experience was like, but like, it was just like, for me, it was just so carefree. And I'm just like, man, I kind of miss that, because like, you know, you just wake up, man, your friends in the dorm room with you, like, you know, you living with your friends, like, it's just so different. And it's just like it's like halfway in the adult world, because you still gotta be responsible, still gotta go to your classes, you know, you probably work a job, but then also it's just like, it's just your like your own little bubble, like your own little bubble of life before you go into adulthood. So that's why I love this series. I love this series so much, because it just reminds me of like how much fun like the college bubble is. That's what I call it, the college bubble. The next book I read, which I will put the little cover here, I read An Arc by Amy Lee. I read The Catch, which is the 3rd book in the Influencer series. I also gave this one 4 stars. I have not read the first 2, but they are interconnected standalones. The first 2, I will say, do you have to read it in order? No. Will it probably help? Yes. Am I going to go back and read the other 2? Absolutely. So essentially it's kind of almost like how the Off-Campus series is. Like, each book covers a different character. You have these 3 best friends, and they're all influencers in some kind of way. One is a gym influencer, one is just like a lifestyle I think 2 are a lifestyle influencer, but you basically follow each one of them in like their romantic life and then just their life in general. And so the 3rd book focuses on, I forgot her name, oh my gosh, what's this girl name? Melanie. What's the guy's name though? Okay, Melanie and Evan, yeah. So Melanie is, like I said, she's a lifestyle influencer. So she is trying to like, she's just been kind of been like a lull. Her like social media has just kind of been like in a lull. So she is trying to figure out what she can do to like just bring attention back to her social media page. And so while trying to figure out like what to do, she ends up getting an offer to basically go on like this villa vacation And so she goes, and there's been a mix-up. They got her booked for the wrong weekend. So she's like, well, I don't want to fly back home. Like, I might as well just wait it out, like, and wait till the next weekend. So she ends up finding like a nearby town to stay at, and it's in Canada. And so while she's there, well, first of all, she has trouble finding a place to stay. She finds one place that's available, but this place is actually like in the middle of renovations. It's not really a place where someone should stay right now, but the owners eventually, they do end up letting her stay. And one of the owners, or their cousins, and the male owner is just a little grumpy. Like, I'm just like, why? He is just so angry. Like, it's like, dude, why are you so angry? But like, I guess he has some reason to be. Like, he definitely has had a past. Like, you end up discovering like why he is the way he is. Well, I guess why he should be the way he is. But yeah, there's just like a lot of anger there. Like, he's just a little grump. Like, that's the best way to put it. He's just so grumpy, so mean to Melanie. And yeah, so she's just there trying to get content while she's waiting out this week before she can finally go to her relaxing villa. And so yeah, you just find out like everything. Like, you just basically, that's really what it is. It's just you, like, y'all, when I tell y'all romance books, it's just like, it's the same plot line, but like, we're gonna eat it up every time. But yeah, it's just about how she is in this town for a week, and she's just like doing little things to like try and get content while she's there. And in the midst, there's this incident that happens with Evan, and she ends up having to fake be his fiance. But she really only does it so she can go into the hospital with him. But then it ends up turning out his family finds out, and so now she has to go with it, of being a fake fiance while his family is there in town, and they are trying to figure out what to do with the hotel while renovations are going on. And yeah, you just basically get to see minute by minute, day by day, how Melanie and Evan slowly fall for each other and everything that happens with that. And then if she's gonna stay or is she gonna go back home. Like, she has a whole life in Boston, I think it is. And so yeah, it's like she just can't stop and just decide to move to Canada if she wants to be with this guy. And he is definitely not a city guy. He wants to stay where he is in his small town with the fish. It's like a fisherman's town. So yeah, that is what it's about. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars because it was good. Like, I definitely enjoyed it. I love like anything fake dating, fake marriage, fake engagement. I'm gonna eat it up. So yeah, that's why I got 4 stars for me, because it was really good. I love the character development. Melanie did sometimes get on my nerves, but Evan got on my nerves just as much. So yeah, I highly recommend it. Like I said, it was an arc. So it doesn't come out until, it actually comes out in like 2 weeks. It's a February release. So highly recommend that you read that if you're interested. And like I said, you don't have to read the first 2. It's really more of a preference thing. I will say, since I read the 3rd one, I do, because we do see the 2 friends that are in the other 2 books. So I do really want to know their stories now, and like how their partners came into the picture and all of that, because, you know, why not? I mean, I didn't read it, so might as well. This book, I read this in 1 day. And I don't know why I expected anything less, but y'all, this book ate down. It is Checkmate by Ali Hazelwood. First of all, y'all already know I love Ali Hazelwood. The Love Hypothesis is one of my favorite books of all time, and she is the author of it. I just love how she does STEM romances. She just like, she does like the academic like setting very like je ne sais quoi. But she just does it so intriguingly, like you're just so interested. And so this one is actually it's her first YA book. And these are chess players. They are freshly out of high school, getting ready to go to college. And well, the main female character is the male too, technically. But yeah, this is like, chess is like this famous thing in this book, and you know, there are tournaments, which I'm pretty sure there's tournaments in real life too. But yeah, so the main male character, he is this famous known chess player. Like, he is like responsible for the attention that chess has gotten. And the main female character, she used to play chess with her father, and she was also doing tournaments, but then she just stopped once her father passed away. And so she has not played chess. She don't have no plans on playing chess. But she ends up, after school, like after she graduating high school, she doesn't go to college because she needs to work to help support her family. So she gets an opportunity to basically join this company, or this, I don't even know what you would call it, this like team, I don't know how you would call it in the chess world, I honestly forgot. But she ends up basically joining them and basically training for chess and like getting into tournaments and stuff again. And she's doing it, she's like very reluctant to do it, but she did it because she needed the money for her family. She had just lost her job. And she is the only person that has beat Nolan. Is that his name? Yeah. She's the only person that has beat Nolan in chess in like years. No one is known to beat him, and she just beats him on like a whim, like a very simple game. And so yeah, it is all about them basically, you know, becoming teammates in a sense for like a tournament, like think about like the Olympics, like the Olympics of chess. They have to be teammates. And he is he is so intrigued with her. She knows who her father is because her father was really known in the chess world. So yeah, that's like, that's like the best I can put it. It's like so much about chess though. There's, you know, they're young adults. They are kind of figuring out their way in the world, like fresh out of high school, and, you know, as famous chess players. And I loved it. It was just, honestly, y'all, it was just so good. I gave it a 4.5 stars. Anything Allie Hazelwood write usually is like, I always enjoy it, but yeah, I did not expect to enjoy that as much as I did. Like I said, I absolutely loved it, devoured it, and I will always think about that book. But then the next book I read was Night Shift by Annie Crown, and this is basically, this book is about, what's these characters' name? I be forgetting these names. Kendall and Vincent. So Kendall is, she works at the library at her college. She works like the Friday overnight shift. Vincent is the top basketball player, predicted number one draft pick, all of that. And he ends up walking in the library one day looking for a specific book for a project, and she ends up helping him, and they end up having a little moment in the library of like just a lust-filled moment. And so he essentially like ends up like trying to like meet her again. Like he's like, you know, you should come here, but she's very much like, she don't like to go to parties. Obviously him being the top player, he is like always at the parties, or usually their parties are at his house. So yeah, it's about a book lover, introverted, and a basketball player who's like kind of known around, who's very much known around campus. And how they become a thing. I will say, it's so weird because like they literally only had like 3 instances where they meet up, because she starts to like tutor him in the class that he needed help when he came to the library. So they like have like 1 or 2 tutoring sessions, and she like comes to she comes to his birthday party, and then they just end up like together. And I'm just like, that was fast. Like, y'all had like 3 instances, but you know, I still question. I'm like, it didn't happen like that when I was in college. I'm like, people didn't get together that fast, did they? But yeah, like I said, it's giving you the college life, you know, the carefree, you know, you're away from your parents, you in the dorm rooms with your best friends, like all of that. So I did get 3 stars, and it's actually a Wattpad story turned published. And like I said, it was very good. It did what it needed to do in the moment. Like, I was interested, I was intrigued. I was like, okay, now I'm gonna know what happens next. Very short chapters, and yeah, it went super fast. And you know, I love the characters. So like I said, I gave it 3 stars because it was good for what it was. I don't think about it anymore, but it's definitely, you know, it's a little interesting. What I read was my audiobook. So I read the Honeymoon Crashes, which I'll put the cover here. So this is the second book that goes with the Unhoneymooners. And so basically this focuses on the twin sister that was supposed to get married and the Unhoneymooners. So it's not Olive this time. It is Amy. So Amy If you guys did not read the Unhoneymooners, then you would need to read that one first. But Amy was supposed to get married in the, well, she did get married in Unhoneymooners, but she ends up, her and her husband, they don't work out by the end of the book. So and actually in the Unhoneymooners, Olive, her twin sister, ends up going on Amy's honeymoon because everyone got sick during the wedding. And so Olive and then the best man that was originally at the wedding end up going together. And so this book picks up on where that one left off, where Amy, where Olive is about to get married now to Ethan. Is it Ethan? I'm pretty sure it's Ethan. Yes, so Olive and Ethan are finally about to get married, and so Amy is set to plan the wedding. They originally didn't want a wedding, so she's like secretly planning them a wedding. And you know, she's like, you know, even if my wedding didn't turn out right, and even if my marriage didn't, like, I want my twin sister to have the best wedding ever. And so that is what it comes to. Like, she's just like basically planning a wedding. It's a very quick read. I think it was like a 6-hour audiobook, maybe less. 4 hours. It was a 4-hour and 47-minute audiobook. But it was like good to like be back in that world. I did give it 3.5 stars. But yeah, it was, you know, I'm missing like the whole, yeah, so she's like trying to plan a wedding for her twin sister, and she ends up having to let the groom, so Ethan's friend, help her plan. And so you just get to see how that happens. Like I said, she is like recently divorced. She had just gotten married and got divorced because the guy was no good. And so yeah, she's like very much like not really in the romance mood, but she meets this guy and she's like forced to let him help her plan the wedding. And yeah, it's just, you get to see how they have to work together. More so also forced proximity, because she doesn't want to be around him, but he is like very attracted to her. And yeah, they end up falling for each other, all of that good stuff. But yeah, it is not available in paperback, which I did not realize that when I wanted to read it, so I had no choice but to read the audiobook. I don't even think it's Kindle. I think it's strictly audio. So yeah, but it was good. Like I said, if you love the Unhoneymooners and you just feel like, okay, you really want to know where Olive and Ethan's story end, and then you also want to know what happens with Amy after, like, she finds out about her husband and ends up leaving him. Like, does she ever find love? I think this is perfect. And like I said, it's very short. It's a little short story, novella, if you will. But like, it was just nice to see these characters again. Like, I love the characters, and I love like just the setting. You know, they're back in Maui, I think is what they are. So yeah, all of that. I did my reread of House of Earth and Blood. I finally read House of Sky and Breath, and guys, 5 stars. 5 stars. This book, y'all, this book was so good. Literally same thing, plot. There was some romance. I will say they stressed me out from the beginning, because I'm like, y'all had one job. Y'all just had one job. But then I get why they had to do what they had to do, obviously, because then there will be no plot. But it was also just like, bro, like, you have Hunt, who is like, Bryce, please just stop. And then you got, but he's also like, you know, she's right. You know, like, she does have a point. But then you got Bryce, who's just like, I don't care what the theory says. After House of Earth and Blood, these two were just instructed to lay low, just to not bring attention to themselves, because I don't want to ruin House of Earth and Blood, but basically they do some crazy stuff at the House of Earth and Blood. And so the Asteri, which is like their government, is just not, they just like, you know what, sit out, like, just don't bring attention to yourselves, and we will let you live. We won't bother you guys. And so that's what their assignment was to do in this book, and they do anything but that. They are asked to be involved in basically a rebel activities to retrieve these kids, or this kid who is like known to have this special power that the Asteri essentially killed off years ago. And so like anybody who was like born with these powers or like not expected to live. And so now everybody is after this kid, and they are about to go after him to try to protect him. But then also there's so many other things that go on in this book. And I love that we get so much of Run in this book, or Rune Dannon. I guess it's Rune. Or Run Dannon. How do you guys, do you say Rune or Run? Like, do you say are you any or are you in? I say Rune, I guess. I don't know what I say, but I love like we get more of him and we get more of his friends. And then we also, like, he ends up making a connection with someone that is helping them with the rebel activities. And so they're like, she's known as Agent Day and Rune is known as Agent Night. And so yeah, it's just, that's all I can really say about it. Like, but like, it is so good. And obviously everyone talks about the ending of this book, and that is why the anticipation for House of Flame and Shadow was so like crazy. So I cannot wait to dive into that one this weekend. But yes, literally so good. Like, literally the plot is just like eating, like, and there's so many like characters. Like, you just grow attachment to so many new characters, and it's just, I love it. I love that it just reminds me like of like how with Akitar, like, you know, even though like the first 3 books, you know, you get Feyre and Rhysand, but you get just as much as them as like you get of Azriel and Cassian and Nesta and Elaine and everyone. Like, I love how like how Sarah J Maas does like found family. Like, that is one of my favorite tropes she writes, and that is what you get in this book. I love her found family aspect, and that is what, like, House of Earth and Blood, like, yes, you get a little bit of that, but I feel like it is so prevalent in this book. And it's like, it's done like because they're all having to work together, but like they find like a true genuine friendship in it too. Like, they're having to learn to trust each other, because what they're doing can get them all, like, they can all be executed so easily for what they're doing. So yeah, that is literally, you know, they are trying to complete like a mission that they're not really supposed to be completing. And, you know, at the end of this, like, they try to complete multiple missions. Like, the little kid is just like the one thing that like makes them all have to work together. But on top of that, like, there's so many other things they have to complete now. Well, they don't have to, but like that they want to do to like be decent people. And yeah, 5 stars. I cannot wait to dive into House of Flame and Shadow this weekend. Like, literally, I am ready to be staring at a wall once I finish, because I know that's what I'm gonna be doing. I know I'm gonna be staring at a wall. But then last but not least, I read The Goal, which is the 4th book in the Off-Campus series. And it's not the final book. You have the Legacy, but the Legacy is about all of them and like where they're at, like, after, like, because each book kind of ends, like, you go like their entire senior year. So each book basically focuses on, I mean, the last book focuses on like how they are like after college, because this one ends, they just graduated and they're like a few months out of college going into the real world. And so yeah, this book, The Goal, is focused on Tucker and Sabrina's story. Tucker is like, he's like the caregiver of all of like the friend group. Like, he's the cooker, he's the, you know, he's from Texas, has the southern charm, you know, he calls her darling, and he's just like, he's very patient, he's very much just like, you know, he's very positive. Like, he looks at everything with a positive frame of mind. And Sabrina is the opposite. Sabrina is, she's like, she did, you know, her father left her, her mother left her, she was raised by her grandma, she got a creepy stepdad that live in the house, and so her main goal is like, I don't have anything, I can't be anything but successful to get out of this situation that I'm living in. And so she is set to go to law school, and she has it all figured out. She's just like, her main goal is to like not live how I've been living. Like, her goal is to like, okay, I need to get a big law job so I can like stop living this life that I've been like kind of forced to live. And so, you know, relationship is just the last thing on her mind. She only does hookups. And her and Tucker start off as a hookup, but then it turns into more. And this one, there is a surprise pregnancy trope, which that's really not that's not me ruining anything, because that's actually on the back of the book, I think. Yes. It's also, you find out that in the, is it the score? Yeah, you find that out too. But as much as, you know, people love, as much hate as the unplanned pregnancy trope gets, this one was actually really good. This is only my second like unplanned pregnancy trope. The other one was Out on a Limb, and I actually really enjoyed that one too. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this one. You know, they are forced to kind of just make a life of what it's happening. You know, we kind of question, like, is Sabrina gonna be able to be a lawyer? Is Tucker, like, he doesn't want to play professional hockey, but he wants to like he went to school for business, so he wants to like buy a business. And you know, now like they have to think about a child, and yeah, like, you know, are they going to keep the child? What are they going to do? And so the only thing I disliked about this book is that it, first of all, Sabrina, she made me mad. I'm like, girl, if you don't stop with all this like self-sabotage, and like, and I get that, like, you know, she just has her walls up and she has reasons, but it was just like, if you just like spoke your mind, and if y'all just like told each other how y'all feel, because Tucker, like, he didn't, the only reason, like, I feel like I know the only reason he didn't, because he obviously says it, because he doesn't want her to, like, he doesn't want to scare her off, because she is very easily, like, the minute I think she feels like things get so real, like, feelings wise, like, she is just easy to, like, she's just like, no, I don't want to be a part of that. And so, like, he doesn't want to scare her off. And so, yeah, it's just like, it took so long for them to finally tell how they feel, but like everything they do in the book shows how they feel. And it's just like, y'all are literally crazy. Like, if y'all don't grow up and tell each other how y'all feel, because y'all get on my nerves. But needless to say, it was so good. 4 stars. I cannot wait to read the legacy to wrap up this world or this series, so then I can go into the like their kids stories. So I think it's the Garrett Graham effect, so I cannot wait to dive into that series. But those are all the books that I read for the month of January. Like I said, we started off the year strong, 11 books, with some really good 5-star reads, of course, some good romances. So yeah, as you guys probably, well, if you didn't watch my previous video, which is my February TBR, we're going into February with high expectations and a lot of good, like, anticipated reads. But yeah, I love you guys, and thank you for watching today's video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.